What's going on, y'all? It's SK13. Welcome back to the channel. I know it's been a while since I've done one of these videos, but today we're going to be answering the question, or share my opinion on whether I believe the 2020 Yamaha MT03 is the perfect beginner bike or not. So just to kind of give you guys some background on my motorcycling journey, back in high school when I was young and dumb, I hopped on a friend's motorcycle I had no experience. I had no business being on that motorcycle, but young and dumb, I hopped on anyway. I got on, I whiskey throttled it, and I crashed the bike. And that really instilled a lot of fear in me. I was like, maybe motorcycling is not for me. And so I decided to just steer clear. Even though I really, liked motorcycling, I was watching a lot of YouTube videos about motorcycling, but I steered clear for that reason. And so years later, years pass by, and I'm in healthcare, and I'm doing my residency in a hospital, and then the COVID-19 pandemic hits. It was a very high, stressful situation to be in, and it caused me to basically burn out. Doing my residency in the middle of this pandemic was tough, and I got burnt out. And so at that time I was really just thinking like, hey, I need to do something that's productive and something out of the norm for myself. So what ended up happening was I went and signed up for the MSF class, or here it was like the California Motorcycling Safety Program class. It basically, taking that class allows you to bypass the motorcycle riding skills test at DMV, which you need to get your license. And that's the course I took. It's equivalent to basically MSF in other states and whatnot. So yeah, that was the course I took. I had zero experience going into that, and I did it to basically conquer my fear of motorcycling. And I ended up passing. I got my license, and I went and bought my first motorcycle, brand new. This motorcycle, as you can see here, the 2020 Yamaha MT03. I'll do maybe a separate video on whether buying used or new, pros and cons of both for a beginner rider, and kind of share my opinions on that as well. But that's to kind of give you some background on my motorcycling journey. And with that perspective in mind, today we're going to answer the question of whether the bike, this 2020 Yamaha MT03, is the perfect beginner bike or not. Alright guys, this list is in no specific order. So first on the list is the riding position of the MT03. So it's very upright, and that has two really big benefits. So first is going to be vision. You're going to be able to see a lot further down the road. And vision is very important when you're learning how to ride. The further that you can see down the road, the more proactive that you can be, the more defensive you can be with your riding. So that's very important. And the second part of the upright positioning of this motorcycle, the ergonomics, is the confidence that you get. Because you're sitting more upright, you feel a lot more confident, in the sense that if you were to get a sports bike, you would have more pressure on your wrists, your back, there would be more pressure there. So there's just more things to really worry about, right? Just give me a sec here. So there's more things to worry about, and having a more upright position really, takes care of that for you. All you really have to do is focus on your riding. Learning how to grip the tank with your legs and really using your core to hold on to the bike versus your arms is going to be a lot easier to learn on when you have a more upright position on a motorcycle. So upright positioning, ergonomics, first thing on the list. Next up, we have the ride height. So the ride height of the MT03 is on the shorter side, and that really comes into play when, see, for example, you're coming up to a stop sign. You're able to really plant your feet down on the ground. You feel a lot more stable. Just to kind of give you some perspective, I'm about 5'10", 5'11", and I can plant both my feet down, no problem, on this bike. For those of you that are shorter, this might even be an even bigger pro. than it is for me, but definitely is an advantage for this bike. And coming to a stoplight is one thing. The biggest place where the ride height is an advantage in my books is when you're practicing your slow speed maneuvers, which you will be, as you'll quickly find out that the slow speed maneuvers are actually the hardest part. Even in the MSF course, the slow speed stuff was the toughest part of the class. And you'll find out that when you're doing those slow speed maneuvers, being able to, readily and more easily plant your feet on the ground is gonna allow you to push yourself further in terms of practicing those skills. And what I mean by that is, doing all of your counterbalancing and whatnot can get a little hairy. Sometimes you feel like maybe you'll drop the bike while you're turning. So being able to really easily plant your foot down, tremendous help. Next up on the list, we have the engine. So this is the 300cc engine. The debate on whether to start on a 300 or 600, I think, has been beaten to death. So definitely watch those other videos if you're interested in that. But in my opinion, I think 300 is not too little and not too much. It's perfectly right in the middle. And I think that's important, just because I think the biggest thing is that, in my opinion, you would learn much faster on a 300, where the power is more manageable than you could on a 600. I think you could definitely, buy a 600, like a Yamaha R6, for example, and be able to ride it. I think riding is not the problem. I think the speed at which you'll learn will be slower if you have more power. Majority of the time, especially when you first start riding, if you have a more powerful bike, your focus will be more on, just surviving and not really learning how to ride. And the leeway of, the mistakes that you can make, that window is a lot smaller. So I think with the 300, you have just enough power to be able to grow and learn at a much faster pace. And for some people, it might just be like, okay, that's why they keep the 300cc or their beginner motorcycle for a very short amount of time, is because they learn so quickly that they're able to sell it and move on. And regardless of what you decide to do, I don't think buying a 300 and selling it later is that big of an issue. Because as you'll notice in the used marketplace, the 300cc or beginner motorcycles, they hold their value pretty well. So even if think of it as an investment, you're buying a 300cc bike, you're going to be able to basically sell it for what you bought it for. So that's not really an issue. So you might as well get the more manageable power, learn at a much faster pace, and you're going to be able to practice everything like rev matching. You're going to be able to focus on your braking techniques. So it takes away the scariness of having too much power on your right hand away, and it really just lets you focus and hone in on the skills that you need to basically develop. Next on the list is the flickability of this bike. And when I first got into motorcycling, I thought speed would be the most fun thing. It's definitely not. It's the flickability and the ease of maneuverability of the bike that I think is the most fun. Like, look at this. Very easy to do, and it's so much fun. And then going through turns, that's the most fun part about motorcycling, in my opinion. And having this bike really helped me realize that. Next thing on the list is the extra play that's in the throttle. If you look right here, there's extra play, and the throttle isn't as sensitive, right? I think that's a huge plus for when you're a beginner rider, because there's less chances of you whiskey throttling it, right? Because as you're learning, when you initially start, your throttle control is not going to be that great. So having that little extra play right there is really helpful to prevent that. And as you know, I mean, from the backstory and my background I gave to you guys, whisker throttling is how I crashed the bike. So that was huge for me, and it's going to help a lot of other beginners out as well. And then last on this list, kind of tying in together with the, you know, travel play being in the throttle being more friendly for beginners, I would say it's the same case for the brakes too. So as a beginner rider, you know, panic braking can be a huge problem, and what that is when you grab too much brake too quickly, and then you end up high siding, or, you know, you fall forward over the bike. So these brakes, as you can see there, they have some play, right? And it doesn't bite as hard. Even here, you really have to kind of squeeze it. So I'm not saying the brakes are bad, they're actually pretty good. It's just that initial bite is not as strong as it would be if you were on another motorcycle, or a more high performance motorcycle, say an R6 for example. Sorry, just had to do that. But anyways, you guys get the point. Extra travel play makes it a little bit easier for when you're learning how to use your brakes in the first place, right? You won't, even if you accidentally grab a little too much, you have enough time because of the play to catch yourself and kind of let go and get back in the mentality of like, all right, slow progressive braking. That's what you want to do. That's what you want to focus on. And that's the end of the list. Why don't we head back to the church and wrap this video up? See you guys there. Alright, now that we're back from that ride, we can kind of summarize this whole video up, right? So the MT03 is a great bike. You simply get on and go. That's all you have to do. It is a Yamaha, so reliability is not a concern. You never have to have, you know, that inkling in the back of your mind like, oh, I gotta, you know, have X amount of money in my bank account in reserve, and just in case something breaks down, it's going to be expensive to fix. With Yamaha reliability, you don't really have to, you know, be, of course you should save some money on the side, but not as much as, you know, if you were to go with a non-Japanese brand. But Yamaha reliability is great, don't have to worry about it. And then if you're coming from a place of fear, you know, you're watching a lot of YouTube videos on getting your motorcycle, learning how to ride, but at the end of the day, fear is what's stopping you back, I think the MT03 is a great first step in that direction of conquering your fears, just because of the reasons we discussed in the video. Alright, and I'm not going to tell you that the MT03 is the perfect and best, absolute best bike for you, but it was the best bike for me. It is the best bike for me as it stands, and at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter what, you know, bike you decide to start with. As long as you start riding, you begin your motorcycle journey, that's what really matters, right, at the end of the day. And most importantly, you're going to grow as you ride. Even the most experienced riders continue to learn and develop their skills. So the biggest key takeaway from this is start riding no matter what it is. Of course, you know, be sensible in how much power, like don't go off getting a leader bike right off the bat, and enjoy the growth that you see in yourself. Enjoy the growth that you see in your motorcycle riding skills, but even outside that, it's a completely different new world out there. When you're riding a motorcycle, you see things differently, so enjoy all of that, but most importantly, start the journey. Alright guys, if you guys like this video today, make sure to drop a like, comment down below, hit the subscribe button, hit that bell icon to, you know, stay tuned for all my future videos. And if you have any thoughts or questions, you know, comment down below and I'll make sure to get to them. Alright guys, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.